For 15 years, it was just us. 15 years of birthday cakes with one less candle. 15 years of parent-teacher conferences where one chair was always empty. 15 years of him being both mom and dad. Now, there's someone new, and the quiet life we rebuilt feels like it's shattering all over again. How do you watch your remaining parent find new happiness when it feels like a fresh wave of grief, a betrayal of everything you've cherished? My world split in two when I was 9. One moment, I had a mother. Her laughter was the soundtrack of our home, her hands the ones that soothed every scrape and fear. The next, there was this unbearable silence, a void so big it threatened to swallow us whole. Dad, in his own quiet way, just stepped into that void. He learned to braid hair, even if he was awkward at first. He sat through my dance recitals, his applause always the loudest. He became my confidant, my rock, the single, unwavering presence in a world that had suddenly become terrifyingly unpredictable. For 15 years, he was my everything. Our lives turned into this carefully built fortress, made of shared grief and an unspoken promise to keep Mom's memory alive. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our ways of getting through the holidays that always felt a little dimmer without her. Her photographs were everywhere, her smile a gentle, constant reminder of what we'd lost, but also of the love that still bound us. He never talked about dating, never even hinted at it. It was just this understanding between us. Our little family of two was complete. Our loyalty to Mom's memory was absolute. I guess I thought that was enough for him, just like it was for me. I thought our shared past, our quiet present, was proof of a love that even death couldn't diminish. He was her everything until she was gone, and then, for a decade and a half, he was mine. I was 24 when Dad first mentioned a friend. The word itself, so simple, landed like a stone in a still pond. He was casual about it, almost too casual, when he mentioned her name, Sarah. He said they'd met through a work colleague, that she was nice. My stomach just twisted. A friend? Or was it something more? My mind, this vault where I kept all my carefully preserved memories of Mom, immediately recoiled. The first meeting was arranged with a similar, almost painful, casualness. A Sunday lunch. I remember walking in, my heart hammering against my ribs, a fake smile plastered on my face. And there she was. Pleasant, kind, with a warm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes when she looked at me. Or maybe I just imagined that part. She was nice. That was the word Dad had used, and it was true. She wasn't some villain from a storybook, she was a perfectly normal, middle-aged woman. And that, somehow, made it even worse. She tried, I'll give her that. She asked about my work, complimented the old photos of Mom that were on the living room walls, the same photos Dad and I had so carefully chosen and placed over the years. Each polite question, each attempt to connect, felt like a tiny chisel chipping away at the foundation of my life, the life I'd known and fiercely protected for 15 years. I answered in short phrases, my eyes constantly darting to Dad, searching for any sign that this was just a fleeting thing, a temporary lapse. But his eyes, when they met mine, held a new light, a light I hadn't seen in years. It was a light that didn't include me, not in the same way. It was the light of a future I hadn't seen coming, a future that felt like a direct insult to our past. The conversation was stilted, full of awkward silences that Dad would rush to fill with overly enthusiastic chatter. Sarah, to her credit, handled my barely hidden hostility with a certain grace. But all I could see was an intruder in our sacred space. All I could hear was the echo of Mom's laughter, sounding fainter now, more distant, as this new presence tried to stake a claim in our home, in Dad's heart. That lunch felt like the longest meal of my life. When it was finally over, and she was gone, the silence she left behind felt different. It wasn't the comfortable silence Dad and I usually shared. This was heavy, loaded with unspoken accusations and a deep sense of loss that was just beginning. Slowly, almost sneakily, Sarah became a fixture. Weekend dinners started happening all the time. Her coat was now a familiar sight on our coat rack. Her laugh, so different from Mom's, began to echo in hallways that had only ever known our family's sounds. It was a new normal, one I hadn't agreed to, one that felt like a constant, painful reminder of Mom's absence and, more, of Dad's emotional distance from me. Family traditions, those precious connections to our past, began to change. Christmas, which used to be a quiet time when Dad and I would share stories about Mom, now included Sarah's attempts to bring in her own customs. It felt like Mom was being erased, gently and politely pushed aside. When I tried to talk to Dad about it, he'd get this weary, defensive tone. "She makes me happy, can't you see that?" He'd ask, a hint of frustration in his voice. And I did see it. I saw the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled at her, how easily they talked. But his happiness felt so tied to my pain. The fear of losing him, I mean truly losing him this time, became a constant companion. He was still there, physically. But the dad who had been my only anchor for 15 years was drifting away, pulled by a current I couldn't fight. Our one-on-one time dried up. Our conversations, once so easy and open, became strained, like walking through a minefield of things left unsaid. I worried all the time about how our family was changing, the subtle shifts in loyalty that felt like earthquakes in my world. I know it's not just me. Even adult children, people with their own lives and families, can find it incredibly hard when a widowed parent starts dating again. It's not about being childish, it's about this complicated mix of grief, loyalty, and the fear of your family unit changing forever, in a way you can't go back from. Losing a parent is a huge loss, and that relationship is irreplaceable. Seeing him with someone new felt like watching him rewrite our history, a history where Mom was central, where our bond was created in her absence. Now, it felt like her memory was fading, and I was the only one desperately trying to hold on to it. This wasn't just about Dad finding someone new, it was about me losing another piece of him, and another piece of Mom, all over again. The annual trip to the lake, that was our thing. Mom had loved that little cabin, the way the sun set over the water, the sound of the loons in the early morning. After she died, Dad and I had made it a kind of pilgrimage, a way to feel close to her, to surround ourselves with shared memories. This year, Dad announced that Sarah would be joining us. The words just hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. She'd really like it there, he said, his voice almost pleading. It's beautiful, and it would be a good chance for you two to connect. Connect. At the one place on earth that felt completely ours, completely Mom's? The suggestion itself felt like a violation. I tried to explain, my voice trembling. I talked about Mom, about tradition, about how sacred that space was for us. He didn't understand. Or maybe, he didn't want to. It's been 15 years, honey, he said, his tone gentle but firm. Life has to go on. Your mother would want me to be happy. Would she? Would Mom approve of this woman sleeping in her old room, walking the trail she loved, her laughter mixing with the memories Dad and I held so dear? The thought was a physical ache in my chest. His words, meant to comfort, felt like a dismissal of my grief, of the 15 years we'd spent honoring her in our own quiet way. It felt like he was choosing Sarah's potential comfort over my very real pain. The argument that followed was bound to happen. It was the explosion of months of simmering resentment and unspoken fears. Voices were raised. Tears were shed. I accused him of forgetting Mom, of putting his new relationship before his own daughter. He accused me of being selfish, of not wanting him to find happiness. The words, once they were out, couldn't be taken back. They hung between us, ugly and raw. That trip to the lake never happened, not that year. The thought of sharing it, of watching Sarah insert herself into those precious memories, was just unbearable. But the fallout was worse. A huge gap had opened between Dad and me, a rift that felt deeper and more painful than anything I could have ever imagined. The man who had been my rock, my constant, now felt like a stranger. And the memory of my mother, instead of being a source of comfort, felt like another battleground. I felt this overwhelming sense of betrayal, not just to Mom's memory, but to the unique bond Dad and I had built in the fire of our shared loss. I know I'm not alone in feeling this way, this sense that a new partner somehow makes the deceased parent seem less important. It's not that I expect Dad to live in a shrine to his grief forever. Logically, I get that he needs companionship, a life beyond just being Dad. But this isn't about logic, it's about emotion, about the deep roots of our family story. And when I say my mom would never approve, it's not coming from a place of malice. It's from a deep understanding of who she was, and what our family stood for. Mom was a woman of fierce loyalty, of quiet strength. Her love for Dad was something you could almost touch, a force that shaped our home. Theirs was a partnership built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and an almost telepathic way of understanding each other. Sarah, no matter how well-intentioned she is an outsider to that legacy. She doesn't share our history, our inside jokes, the specific rhythm of our family's joys and sorrows. The idea of Dad sharing the intimate details of his life, the spaces that were once just for Mom, with someone new feels wrong. It feels like it waters down something sacred. Mom wouldn't have wanted her memory to be a cage for Dad, but I also believe she wouldn't want it to be so easily supplemented. Her approval, in my mind, would depend on whether this new relationship honored the past, rather than trying to paint over it. And right now, it feels like painting over it. It feels like the unique bond he shared with Mom, the bond that shaped my entire childhood, is being subtly changed, its importance lessened with every new memory he creates with Sarah. It's like, as adult children, we become the keepers of our parents' memory, don't we? We feel this deep need to make sure their legacy isn't forgotten or somehow tarnished. This isn't about being possessive, it's about love and remembrance. When a new partner comes along, especially after so long, it can feel like a threat to that role. I find myself constantly comparing Sarah to Mom, not out of spite, but because Mom is the benchmark. And in my heart, Sarah falls short, not because she isn't a good person, but because she isn't Mom. It's a common fear, isn't it? That this new person will try to replace the parent who's gone, or that their being there will somehow erase all those precious memories. The truth is, I'm lost. I'm caught in this whirlwind of conflicting emotions, love for my father, this lasting grief for my mother, resentment towards Sarah, and a deep, aching fear of being left behind. I want Dad to be happy. I truly do. But I also desperately want him to understand the depth of my pain, this feeling that his happiness is coming at the expense of my peace, and maybe, at the expense of Mom's memory. People say everyone reacts differently to these things, and I guess that's true. My reaction is mine, born from my specific history, my relationship with both my parents. Sometimes I wonder, am I the one who's not adjusting properly? Or is there something just incredibly difficult about this situation, especially after 15 years of life being a certain way? At 24, I'm an adult. I have my own life. But the 9-year-old girl inside me who lost her mother still feels that raw, primal fear of abandonment. She sees her father, her hero, turning his gaze towards someone new, and it feels like the ground is shifting beneath her feet all over again. I've tried to set boundaries, to tell him I need one-on-one time, that some traditions need to stay untouched. Sometimes he hears me. Other times, he seems to think my requests are an attack on Sarah, or that I'm refusing to accept his new reality. It's a delicate, painful dance. Everyone says open communication is key. But how do you communicate when what you both fundamentally want, his happiness and your preservation of the past, seem to be in direct opposition? What I really long for is for him to talk openly, to acknowledge how hard this is, and to reassure me that his new relationship doesn't make our past love, or Mom's love, any less. That reassurance often feels lost in his enthusiasm for this new chapter. Is there a way forward where nobody gets hurt? I honestly don't know. Some days, I feel a flicker of something that might be acceptance. I see a genuine smile on Dad's face, a lightness in his step that's been missing for so long, and a part of me, the part that loves him unconditionally, feels a pang of warmth. Maybe, just maybe, this new chapter doesn't have to mean the end of the old one. But then, a careless comment, a shared glance between him and Sarah that I'm not part of, a favorite story of Mom's that he now tells with Sarah by his side, and the walls go right back up. The grief, fresh and sharp, washes over me, and the resentment floods back in. It's a constant push and pull. Perhaps acceptance isn't about liking Sarah, or even about fully understanding Dad's choices. Maybe it's about finding a way to coexist with this new reality without losing myself, or the precious memories of my mother. It might mean creating new traditions while still fiercely protecting the old ones that connect me to Mom. It might mean acknowledging Dad's right to happiness while also carving out space for my own grief and my own needs. It's about understanding that new relationships don't have to replace or diminish past ones, they can just be different chapters. This journey is going to take patience, clear boundaries, and ongoing communication from everyone. Right now, we're kind of short on all three. But the alternative, a permanent split from my father, the only parent I have left, is unthinkable. He was my everything for 15 years. The thought of losing that connection, no matter how strained it is now, is a pain I'm not sure I can bear. This is my story, or at least, this chapter of it. It's messy, it's painful, and it's far from over. I know I can't be the only one who has been through something like this. If you've experienced something similar, a parent finding new love after loss, the struggle to balance their happiness with your own grief and memories, I'd be so grateful to hear your experiences in the comments. How did you cope? What helped you find peace, if you found it at all? Sharing our stories, our struggles, can sometimes make the path a little less lonely. And right now, that's something I desperately need. 15 years. It's a long time to live in the shadow of a memory, no matter how beloved. It's a long time for a father to be a daughter's sole emotional anchor. Dad is building a new life, a life that includes Sarah. And I am still trying to figure out my place in it. The fear that I'm losing him, and my past, all over again, is a daily battle. My mother's approval, or what I imagine it to be, still looms large. But perhaps the real question isn't whether she would approve, but whether I can find a way to live with this new reality. Can I honor her memory, cherish the bond I shared with my father during those 15 sacred years, and still allow him his happiness, even if it looks different than I ever imagined? There are no easy answers. Grief doesn't follow a straight line, and neither does family. This journey, of a daughter, a father, and the ghost of a love that will never truly fade, is ongoing. The ending is yet to be written. All I know is that I loved my mother fiercely, and I love my father just as much. And somewhere, in the tangled mess of those two profound loves, I hope to find my way. Maybe not to full approval, but perhaps, to a fragile, hard-won peace. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more personal narratives. Your support means more than you know. Take care.